Hello everybody and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays where we hopefully learn to try a little bit harder. I'm your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is none other than Mr. Blue. How's it going, Mr. Blue?
Hello everyone. Yeah, it's good. It's the pubs have been good to me lately. I have, dare I say it, been playing Invoker. And
nasty.
yes, I'm the worst, but I don't feel too bad about it. All right, because I can go full hipster on you. I played Invoker way back in the day when his laning phase was just terrible. And you know what, guys? This is the comeuppance. You know, I feel like these are my reparations for being a sad little Invoker player back in the days where he couldn't sustain himself, or he just was terrible against every other mid and would lose every matchup. So I'm pretty happy. Things are going pretty well. Leveling up my Smurf account. I'm starting to do some party ranked games, calibrating for that, and so far so good. I think I might come close to 4K. We'll see.
We will see. And so are you joining in on the race for the march to the next K, as it were, during March?
Indeed, yeah. I'm going to do the best I can. The thing is, I don't want to be playing solo queue, so I like playing party games, and I like playing Dota. So I think I'm just going to be, from here on out, sticking with my Smurf account, leveling that up, see where it takes me. You know, and if I land wherever I land, I'm just going to go for 4K. And I don't know if that'll happen in March or by the end of March, but that is the goal at least, right? I know that the boys on the Monday show have been working their asses off, spamming that SPEC to pick Spectre as soon as possible. But,
I don't know. I think they're a good example of working harder and not smarter sometimes. Just because they have good days and they're just like, hell yeah, buddy. Like, Dota's the best. It's my favorite game. And then I see them the next day and they're all downtrodden. And I'm like, is there something wrong with you? Like, what happened in your life to make you so sad? And it's the Dotes, man. It's the Dotes every time. It's a really hard relationship, especially I don't think it's ever been easy to climb in your solo, but I think it requires these type of social skills maybe you don't learn in ranked party, like people being so amiable to like what you want to choose and stuff, and like not biting back at that. Not that these guys do that at all. It's just you got to pick something so general that it works into someone not being able to throw like a wrench in your plan suddenly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to. I mean, there's just certain heroes that there's a reason that they're not so popular. You know, on Dota Buff is you look at guys like Elder Titan. My boy, I love him dearly, but he's a guy that really requires a lot of setup, right? He's a hero that has all these great abilities that work in conjunction with other heroes, but if you don't have the follow-up and the kind of coordination, then he's okay, but you don't feel like you're having a really strong impact.
Yeah. He's like a mini Enigma or something. Yeah. Because like I feel like with the Enigma at my skill level anyway, like people will blink in and get a 4-man black hole or something, and then they'll look at their team and they're all like heading back to base. And he's like,
and then there's the
guys,
ping,
and it's
ping,
like,
ping.
Yeah, it's like, well, man, like you're not saying anything on the mic, and you just do this like YOLO blink and catch some guys, and then they kill you.
Yep,
that's okay.
But I got to tell you though, as the guy who has had to do that before. The problem with that is it is such a split second where you have that opening. You can't blink, black hole, and at the exact same time communicate that you're going in, right?
Yeah.
It's like
but you need to communicate beforehand.
Like, but what I'm saying is
you have time
maybe
to make
that opening
up.
Isn't there.
Yeah.
Right. If I say I'm going in and then all of a sudden the opening disappears, then I have to give them the nope, never mind, no, I'm not, and. Like you're trying to control your hero all at the same time. There's just that's the difference between like a hero like Tide Hunter and a hero like Enigma, right? Tide Hunter, you don't even need a blink sometimes. You could just ravage as a counter initiation, and it
Enigma you hear him like a block away. It's like it's like Dr. Manhattan or some shit.
Yeah, and it's just so easy to mess that up. So I can empathize with the Enigma players too, because your window's so small and the margin for error is not that big.
Not a very popular hero anymore. Like if we're gonna segue into like major talk and everything, I feel like Enigma is a little bit too much of a risk. You're putting a lot of little Eidolon eggs in one basket, and it doesn't really work out as much as like an Enchantress would. with that guaranteed damage running in the exact same slot or something like that. It's like this meta might suggest that you would want someone who can push sufficiently and fight a little bit over someone like Enigma who can just lock people down.
Yeah, something I noticed from the Shanghai Major that, like we did see a lot of those jungle heroes, like the Enchantresses, the Chens, lots of picks and bans, especially for the Enchantress. But with the Enigma, like, there are just specific teams who love their Enigma. I think, like, Complexity is a good example. Those are, like, that team just plays Enigma all the time, and they make Enigma, like, the center of their kind of push strategy. And, I mean, the hero had a pretty good win rate, but it wasn't picked all the time. I think it had, like, a 66% win rate, something around that. And it, it did pretty well at the Major, but it was one of those, like, either you have a team that plays a lot of Enigma or you don't. And I guess that could just goes to show you that, you really have to have a coordinated team to be super successful with it. But, let's just talk about the Shanghai Major, man. I mean, what were you able to catch?
I caught the finals. I caught the semis. I caught a lot of the winners bracket and the early part of the losers bracket. That was just from following teams I was interested in. A lot of my predictions were, of course, wrong. Even from the hero picked and stuff. I think it was Jekyll, in his infinite English wisdom, who told me that it was definitely going to be Earth Spirit that was going to be most picked, most banned.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. Like, that kind of seems far-fetched to me, but it ended up being close to true, at least. That hero was seen a ton. He offers a strange amount of stun and also kind of like a Sand King-like ability ult. You know what I mean? It's not quite Sand King, but it's also like it almost functions in the same way depending on if you've been developing that area with your like remnants and everything. And so
sure.
He was a surprisingly strong pick that I didn't believe until I saw the tournament. It really surprised me.
A lot of pro players have been honestly, they've just been bitching about that hero for
a
ages
while.
now.
I heard Admiral Bulldog's complaints about him and a few other people that he should be removed from the game or whatever. And it's funny because I never considered him that. He's been weak for so long, but I mean, he's one of those high skill ceiling heroes, I guess.
Exactly. He's got and there's certain teams, especially, that you just have to ban it for. I mean, with Team Liquid, they came in second place, and I'm pretty sure almost all of the games they played, Earth Spirit was banned because Jerax is one of those guys who has like a couple signature heroes like Tusk and Earth Spirit were heroes that were just constantly banned out, specifically against him because he has. Those are like one of those really high skill positioning heroes, and they were both heroes that he specializes in. And so, it's if you give that kind of a hero and you put it in the hands of a guy like that who's been known as an Earth Spirit picker even before he got on a big team, it just goes to show you how powerful that hero is and how much of an impact on the game he can have from like level 2 onward. I mean, once he hits like level 2, he's got that remnant and he can just fly across the map and gank from anywhere. So
he's a very he's a mixed bag. That's what I like about him a lot. Not like mixed bag in terms of performance, but like a mixed bag of tricks. Like you got a little bit of Tusk, you've got a little bit of Spirit play, and you've also got like a little bit of Sand King. You've got a lot of utility. You know what I mean? Like you've got
a little Veno, the damage over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Veil
like
carrier.
you've got a mixing pot of different off lanes. And so I'm really glad to see that hero in different positions, like because he's just a big bag of utility. You slap him with a 4-staff or whatever else, and he's just becomes this powerhouse. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that this meta has moved from, well, not this meta, but metas before it have changed in terms of how we pick these different heroes. We prioritize different positions, it feels like. And it feels like perhaps now we're in a place where positions are equally valued, from mid to safe lane to off lane. It's very interesting.
Yeah, someone needs to get an oil can back there, by the way, because that thing, that poor door, is just crying out.
It sounds like the Tin Man from If I only had some fucking WD-40. It's like, no, it's bad.
Or it's just bitching about Earth Spirit.
We need a contained.
Like, it's bullshit.
But so I feel like that was a big surprise for me. Another one was I've been playing a lot of Sven lately, so It's like this interesting moment where he's popular again. Like I feel definitely, like you said about the Invoker earlier, you felt like you were a hipster about it. I feel the exact same way about Sven. It's like I've been playing him for so long that
yeah.
It's like to see him relevant again is nice, but you see some follies in this tournament because he hasn't been played that much at all. You saw the big moment of the tournament was Arteezy getting trapped in that tree ring, I think, and there was like everyone was kind of memeing about it, and he didn't have the Quelling Blade when he had the Divines, and like they could have, busted through or whatever, and they lost that game, I believe, right?
They did. I think that was
a secret game, or who was that?
It was EG against, I want to say, Team Liquid.
Yeah, Team Liquid. I think you're right. And that goes back to the prioritization of the Nature's pick, that global presence. It's very interesting.
Yeah, he was number 2 on the pick ban, most contested pick ban heroes.
It's like someone at Valve like really pitied Bulldog, and they're just like, that guy deserves his heroes to be back. And like, look at this. Like, you've got the LD back, you've got the Nature's back, you've got all these off lanes that are just these
Beastmaster too.
Yeah, exactly. He's like Enchantress. I mean, that's a dream for an off lane in a way, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like depending on the type of style you play.
I like that point you mentioned about how the way that the drafting phase has changed is that you're seeing a lot of these position 3s and position 4s being prioritized way heavily over the traditional, let's ban this carry or this mid because they're super strong right now. We all remember the days of yore in 6.85 and even 6.84 where you would ban out either Leshrac and or Shadow Fiend and or Storm Spirit, right? Any combination of those
three. Very rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. So it's nice to see that.
Well, let's expound upon that a bit because I feel like you have some interesting insights there. What are you seeing in the mid now that is more varied than the past metas, where you just had like the rotating power mid type situation?
Right. I mean, you still see some common themes, right? Like Outworld Devourer has the same pick ban rate as Nature's Prophet,
and he's very similar mechanically, I guess, to some of those anti-heroes, but.
Yeah, it had a lot of success. Invoker obviously was extremely popular. I mean, look at the display that Weehaw put on, but even not just him, but others. I mean, it was a competition between him and Fada. You could say that it was the Invoker finals because they constantly were trading who was going to play Invoker, and Weehaw out-invokered him. That's for sure. Some other interesting picks like Bat Rider we've seen a little bit more. Puck in the mid lane a little bit. We didn't see it as much in the finals on the LAN finals, but we still saw some interesting picks that really, I don't know, could catch people off guard if they weren't conscious of it. I mean, Death Prophet. I was surprised Death Prophet wasn't picked as much as she was. I mean, she got picked and banned pretty often, but I mean, she's not even in like the top 10 or 15, so I think that was one of those heroes that everyone was talking about going into it, but didn't really seem to hold up. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that she wasn't prioritized, over the Invoker, the OD, or even, I don't know, a Bat Rider or Beastmaster?
I think her and Puck were kind of prioritized around the same, which is why I think it's interesting you bring that up. They're not as good as people thought. And Invoker wasn't as bad as people thought. I remember people telling me that this nerf to him was going to just be the end of that hero. Like, he's not going to be played the same way anymore. But yet, I still see him the same amount. We saw him competitively being used quite a bit. And the only difference was, I think, from the nerf, is that you could still cast and stuff on Sonic Boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the big thing. Like, I remember seeing that I call it a GIF. Everyone says it's a GIF, but if you're listening and you have a problem, go fuck yourself. No, I'm kidding. But I saw a GIF of like the Shadow Fiend casting on him as he was Sonic Booming him, so it doesn't like silence you anymore, and you can still move and stuff. And everyone was like, "That's the end of him," which is interesting because that's how the internet reacts. It's like if you have any little change. Like the loud masses are going to tell you that it's just the end of days. You know what I mean? And that didn't go to show. And people would say that like Death Prophet's such a broken hero from Life Siphon and all that like she was going to be played a lot more, and you just didn't see it because I think these are easier they're easier exploited heroes in the sense that if they're caught out of position, they're dead, and they're like reliant upon a 5-man strategy. Maybe not Puck way less probably, but I'd say Death Prophet relies more on that 5-man grouping up that we didn't see much more of in the tournament. We saw different compositions, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, speaking of different compositions, we talked a lot about the mid, the 3, and the 4, but look at the carry. I mean, you talked about Sven, Ursa. We saw a lot of Ursa. I mean, compared to what I was
Enrage is kind of broken, man. Like, I don't know. Like,
Enchantress, you mean?
No, Enrage.
Oh, Enrage is kind of broken.
It's just like the fact that he has, like, you were just seeing him just, like, deflect so much damage just based upon those casts. He's such an interesting hero because he can just dish out so much that you really need to decide how you engage him. And if you do it poorly, then your entire team suffers.
Yeah, you really have to fight around him, literally. And he's a hero that, you know, in the old days used to be kited easily. His whole mechanic where his ult was based on, like, strength, it was kind of just awkward. I mean, you see him now, and the cool part for me was the builds that they went with. I mean, you see Mask of Madness Diffusal Blade on Ursa. It's like, if you were to tell me like a year and a half ago that in the major tournament of Dota, or a major Dota tournament, you would have an Ursa picked, A, and then B, you would have that same Ursa player getting a Mask of Madness and or a Diffusal Blade to take people on. I was like, are you watching like a 4K pub game? Like, what the hell is this? You know, like, it's just such a wonky strategy, but it worked out. I mean, he had a pretty high win rate in it. I mean, you saw some other heroes kind of come into prominence. It was like Phoenix. There's a lot of Phoenix in both the support role, and I think she was played a little bit in the offlane, but it looked like I saw her more in the support role, and that Sunray is like a hard counter to dealing with guys like Enchantress. Yeah, it was very cool. I something I noticed that coming out of this tournament that I'm realizing is Dota is in an excellent spot in terms of just the variety of heroes that you see, the kind of styles you see. I think there was a great point that was brought up on a show. I think it was one of Toffee's shows, and they were talking about how, and I think it was a point either made by Nahaz or Swindles on Complexity, and he was saying how the way that people are treating the game now is very different in that in previous metas you would have to draft against a specific style that was considered the best style, right? And now you have teams that have their own specific tailor-made ways of playing. Like Enigma was a perfect example, is that some teams are great Enigma teams, others are not, so they won't prioritize it then. So as a team, you'd have to...
And they're not necessarily penalized, which is interesting. Like in the past metas where Enigma was super great to run, like TI3 or so, then you were really penalized by not having that able to go, if you needed to punish someone for a different strategy. But now it feels like you can just counter it with something else. And it feels like such an open meta that literally anything can work. But so, continue on. Like, I like where you're going.
Just, like people are bringing their own styles, right? You see Alliance and MVP with very similar kind of just let's go, let's win this early game hard, and let's knock down all your towers as soon as we can and push you out of the game, as quickly as possible with Chen's Enchantress picks. And then you'd see other teams like, Evil Geniuses go for a more traditional approach where they get Arteezy really farmed up. They make a lot of space for him. They win team fights that matter. They make the sacrifices where they have to. They don't take bad fights, and then they win you. They'll beat you either way, right? They're very adaptive. And then you have other teams, like Virtus Pro, who will face rush you, and it's just very cool to see all the different styles having success at very different times. Even have different teams kind of coming out of nowhere. Fnatic. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You predicted MVP to make top 3, and they hit 4th place. I laughed at you when you made that pick, and
none of mine were right, but they were close. I don't know.
A lot closer than mine.
What were your predictions again?
Mine were
Let's reiterate.
EG third place, and then Alliance second place.
You were right there, though.
I was right there with EG,
Yeah.
but then Alliance, I mean, they got rocked by, I think, Complexity. And then
Yeah, they
OG
didn't.
took down
I
Dynamic.
put Alliance in the top 3 as well, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you had something. You had like.
I
did
had
you have EG?
MVP EG Alliance, I think.
Yeah.
But EG, I mean, like, they didn't really impress me this tournament. I'm seeing a lot of, like, brazen kind of ego, and they're not quite to where they were. I think the last meta, what made them strong was their dual roaming supports. I mean, if anyone can prove my point here, it's a player like Puppy, who look at a team like Secret. I mean, many times it was Puppy that you were like, holy shit, is this guy good? And he's a support player. He's someone who's playing on the back with the least amount of gold, and yet he's just wowing you with his play. Like, don't get me wrong, every
I don't
carry.
know, man. I feel if we have to pick.
Did you
an
see
MVP,
his Enchantress play at all? Like, he's incredible, man. Puppy's been his Chen play. It's all very good.
Yeah,
He's incredible.
He played great, but honestly, people have been saying this, and I'm with them there. Pylai die on the Lion especially during the land.
This would also go to
out
support
of
my
nowhere.
point, believe it or not, because that dual awesome support combo is really, really strong. And right now, Fear and PPD are kind of learning that combo together that him and Aoi had already developed. And so it's like they're
Fear had a
relearning
really good
that.
tournament, though. I don't know.
He's a good player.
It's hard to pinpoint where exactly the problem was. You saw a lot of weird picks out of.
And they got top 3, so it's like they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not like you're a shit team. Like, they're the best in the world still, but I was expecting them to hit the grand finals. You know, I really was.
That's how you know you're a very good team when you're like, yeah, I'm really disappointed in them. They only took third place for like the third straight time in a major tournament. You know, it's like, holy shit, these guys have some high expectations, and that's from people who, I don't know, I'd consider us reasonable guys, but
Yeah, we're reasonable enough.
yeah, we're all right, but you know, it just goes to show you the kind of expectations they have. I mean, people have been ragging on Sumail and Arteezy for this tournament, but they still got to third place. Like, they still took down, you know, the best in Dota and got bested by a team that had. I mean, they were on a hot streak. Team Liquid came out of nowhere and was just crushing people. I mean, they've been a good team in Europe for a lot of the time, but they were not even in the Frankfurt Major. They didn't qualify. You know, so to say that, you know, EG it was a bit of a disappointment. At the same time, you could say Team Liquid exceeded expectations far and away. I mean, I don't know anybody who would have had them in the top 3.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't have, and I've been a fan of the team. You know, I think Mind Control's a really great offlane. I think Matumba Man is an interesting personality, and he's a really great carry. You know, I find their Kuroki. I mean, I've followed for years. I think that goes without saying, though. I mean, they just have a really, really strong team.
Yeah, and they'll get better with experience. I mean, I think, Matumba Man and Mind Control are guys who are. I don't want to say they're new to the scene, but they haven't had a lot of LAN finals that they've, you know, attended and gone and made deep runs in. I mean, Mind Control, I know, is especially doesn't have nearly as much experience as a guy like a Kuroki or a Puppy or, you know, even a Pylai Dai or Eternal Envy. Those guys have been around for years, and you see, you know, fresh faces like Matumba Man and Mind Control who, you know, they've been on other like tier 2 teams, but they haven't been, you know, they've never been in front of, you know, tens of thousands of people cheering them on, or really not really cheering them on, cheering Team Secret on, because holy shit, Eternal Envy, man. He's got some fans out there. Did you see that?
Yeah, he's very popular in China, and that's to no surprise. I mean, he was trying to speak China. He was trying to speak China. He was trying to speak Cantonese on the stream. Yes. That's what I meant to say, Cantonese, and they were trying to like decipher it. It was very funny to see because his parents are of course Chinese, and he's an interesting character. He's an interesting profile. You know, I think he played very well this tournament, and this is kind of a good place to segue into like the main topic of the episode, which is the art of the sacrifice. We're kind of going to be discussing when it's a good time to give up yourself, an objective, Roshan, farm, you know, anything else you could imagine, possible kills, because you might think that it would be better to grab that type of advantage later down the road. Kind of that procurement of a later objective like we've talked about previously on the show. And Eternal Envy is a really interesting place to start, Blue, because he's this type of carry that has said before that he's okay to die for an objective or for his team to win a fight or something like that. And it feels like it's something kind of taboo in the scene to die as a carry. It's like you want to keep that person alive overall, the 4 protect 1 strategy. And I feel like some of that philosophy is still alive and well. So to see Team Secret win when, Eternal Envy, sometimes called Feed with 2 capital E's in the middle, it's interesting to see that they won the tournament when he was able to give himself up for a better objective. So did you notice anything like that throughout the tournament? Anything you'd like to
totally.
comment on?
He's just one of those guys who, when he is at his best, it blows your mind, because I don't think people approach the game the same way that guy does, at least from a viewer standpoint. You just see him doing weird stuff all the time, whether it's the item builds that are just wonky, or the decision to blink into uphill and take down the enemy base and kill yourself, just so you can buy back and remnant back in to take the second set of racks. I mean, just the guy does a lot of weird stuff, and it's cool to see. And I feel like this is actually the perfect meta for that kind of thing to happen. Oh, there goes the Tin Man. And so I say that because it feels like the farm distribution has kind of, it's kind of evened out, right? You don't have those really dirt poor brown boots at 40 minutes in with a TP scroll and a set of wards kind of supports anymore. And you have that kind of more equal distribution of farm, and the off lane can actually carry in some spots, and it's very cool to see. And I think it lends itself to the kind of carry player that Eternal Envy is, which is a win at all costs. I'm not too worried about my KDA. I just need to get the win, and I think this is the most efficient way to do that. Even if
it's so interesting that you say that. I want to go back to a real quick point you made before we move on past it, and that's the distribution of farm. And I think in a lot of occurrences, I was seeing around only 18 to 21% of the farm going to the hard carry, the 1 position. And then it would go down from there. And of course, it depended upon the teams. And it wasn't really around the 1 position where it depended. It was the 2, 3, and 4 positions and where the 5s played. Because you look at a 5 like PPD, and he plays with such little farm, man. Like, it's always so surprising to me to look at PPD and see that he's only got 8% of the farm. In a 30-minute game or something like that. So it feels like the farm distribution is staying around the same at that 1 level. But when it comes down to the supports, it becomes a playstyle thing. And this is a support meta more than any one I've ever seen before, which makes sense because, TI5, you look at the Echo Slam, the $3 million Echo Slam, or whatever it was, and you look at all these other big plays that PPD and Owie and Universe were making, and it kind of goes to show that this is the position that dictates the game at a high level, more so than you could ever imagine. And EE, he's a fantastic player. I love him because he takes risks. You just look at all of his play, and he takes such risks, but I don't think he would have been anything without, Pylai, Dai, and Puppy. I mean, they just make him the player that he is on this team, and it's become an amazing thing.
Totally. Yeah, and when we're talking about sacrifice, it can be sacrifice at different levels. I mean, the very common one that you think of when you first start getting introduced to Dota is last hitting. I'm the support. I'm going to let my carry take the last hits. I'm not going to sit in lane. I'm not going to sap the experience, right? I'm going to stack for him. I'm just going to sit there and let him kill the creeps. I'm going to pull the wave, not so that, I can get more farm, but I mean, that's a side benefit, but also to just keep the equilibrium right so he can get his farm. That's kind of the very a basic level of how you would term sacrifice in this kind of a game. And then you have that kind of next level, right, where it's I'm going to sacrifice myself by by vengeful spirit swapping, right? I'm just going to get in the way of someone, make space for my carry, find a way to eat up spells and damage so that someone else can get away, and that's still at a very low level. And then you go to the level above that, and you talk about more high-level things that kind of I'd like to get into is other ways you can quote sacrifice for your team, or when you need to decide whether or not it's worth sacrificing an objective, sacrificing a teammate, things like that. So I feel like with Eternal Envy, the ultimate one for him is making space. This is a guy who will farm on the most dangerous parts of the map. He will blink in towards enemies just to bait out spells, and then fire Remnant away as Ember Spirit. He will play Clinks. He will jump up and try to kill supports on the back line, even if they're 5-man and it's just him. He's just trying to force things when the time is right, or at least that's when it's working, is when the time is right. And so he's kind of the pinnacle of what you would consider a sacrificial carry player, at least in terms of their strategy. he ain't no lamb, all right? He's a lion, baby. He is
a lion. But it's interesting you say that, because this opens up to another possible conversation, and that's like a real understanding of mechanics and the mechanical play of Dota. I mean, I watch this guy's stream sometimes, and he's so meticulous that when the Rosh dies, I mean, he marks the time, but he also marks the time it expires right after. So he'll mark like the time it'll be up, but then he'll also mark the time that like the last time it'll be up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like, he's a tryhard, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he's there. He's on top of it, and his Ember play shows that. But there was a lot of other just standout performances from him throughout like that entire tournament with different carries. He's showing that even though he's made it, and this is a goal he went for by sacrificing. Hint, hint. It's the motif of the episode. He sacrificed going to school. He sacrificed everything to kind of make this dream of Dota happen. I mean, we had Gorgon on the show a while ago, and he gave a fantastic oration of like the legend of EE. It felt like an ancient Greek myth or something with him telling it. And he gave up going to school. Everyone laughed at him, and he eventually is here. But what's surprising and amazing to me is this guy is still trying to be the best, even though he's maybe made it. Some of us might have considered ourselves made it by the point we're at being flown around the world playing a video game or something. But he's still as dedicated as he ever was on all of his hero picks, and I feel that way about his Clinks. I feel that way about his Spectre. I feel that way about, so many heroes that he plays that he almost makes it new just watching him play it. And that's when I know I'm watching a really good player.
Yeah, for sure. It's a guy who you don't want to take your eyes off him when you're watching the screen. But we are gushing over this man.
We gotta, of course, move into the topic of the episode.
Here,
this is kind of like we were illuminating EE as like the centerpiece of our episode in a way.
Yes,
because he's one of those carries that has spoken about giving himself up at certain points and even rotating and fighting out early instead of just taking those fights and ignoring the team fights. So let's talk about sacrificing objectives. Let's talk about sacrificing oneself. Let's talk about sacrificing your teammates and when it's a good idea to do so, because we've got a lot of different issues on different sides. I mean, sometimes you see your teammates take a bad fight and you need to bail from that, and that would very well fit into this topic of this episode. It's being able to assess
when to cut, bait, and run. Yeah.
When to cut and run, and when to also realize, like, I'm pushing myself too far. Realize that you're coming to that point where you're pushing it too far.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to tell a little story.
Ooh,
and it's an embarrassing Wazoo story. I was playing with a Nameless Noob and Hada Kamara and Jay Gushi and Blackheart. And I thought I could just get one more tower, like we won a fight and I went to try to get a tier 2. They poured it on me and killed me. You know what I mean? And this is typical Wazoo behavior these days, boys. Like, boys and girls.
These days?
Yeah. Hey, come on.
All the days.
Hey, I was like one of those boxers that almost made it to the big times but didn't quite. Like, someone told me to throw the fight, and ever since then it's affected my psyche. Like, I could have been the best, baby. Like, I truly believe it. But it just goes to show, like, there's always that risk and reward factor at Dota. And when is it better just to give that up and try to go back for it later? Which is kind of like how I'd like to frame the episode, is in that sense of, should I go for it? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, if you should ever, like, ask yourself, should I go for that objective? You should probably not go for it. It needs to be a given thing, and then it becomes no risk. But the thing with Dota is, like, having a risk and having it pay off is so sweet. but it rarely pays off. We should always remember that.
And you're tempted by those kind of decisions. I mean, at least like 14, 15, 16 times a game in like a 30-minute match, right?
It's like 30 minutes? No, probably not 30 minutes. Maybe 45. You know, it's one time every minute on.
I don't know, man. There's always like should I stack that camp? Or, you know, like, do I get a little more greedy here, stack that camp one more time before I take it?
Oh, you're saying on a micro level. I like where you're going with this. And yes, I completely agree with you.
There's a lot of options here. Like this guy, he looks like he's about to deny tower. Do I blink back in and
try to take the
kill that tower?
That's a good example.
Do I know if there's TPs here? They just glyphed. You know, do I still sit around here and kill the next creep wave so I can take the tower? There's all those different things. I mean, Roche, is it, you know, like... You hit that sweet spot with, I think you can attest to this. Is it Lycan where you hit level 7, level 8, and then you smoke into Roche? What's the ideal level for like a Lycan Roche time?
To look at it logically, I mean, level 8, you can take it like even earlier sometimes, but it just really depends. And it's always dependent upon bashes these days because you don't have that crit chance. So if you're picking that up, I mean, you have it on the Wolves, but you don't have it on your actual Lycan.
Mm-hmm. Ursa is another example. Then let's say Ursa.
It is maybe
the game's not going well.
7,
right?
8 for Ursa. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the game's not going well, and your team is kind of behind, and you've lost a little map control. You know, deciding whether or not you want to take that standard. You know, I have my levels now. I'm going to go take Roche because I'm Ursa thing. Right? Is it time to sacrifice that and just farm up your next item, or is it time to try and push a fight, get everyone together? You know, like that kind of decision making is.
There's a cascade of risk.
What do I sacrifice?
Like I would call it a cascade chart of risks here because you want aggressive wards. Like say if you're Dire, you would want wards up in the Radiant jungle just to make sure no one's going to jump on you on Roche. Like, or the risk becomes a lot worse. Like I've been playing lots of XCOM, and maybe it's unrelated, but like I look at things in like a percentage base. Like if they've got the entire river warded and you're trying to jump into Roche and take it without dust or anything, the chance that they saw you is like, come on, it's like 80% or something. Like they know you're in there, and they hear your roar and the thwaps because the roar is it global? Is I know the Lycan howl is, which always messes me up because they'll like look on the map and where could he be farming, you know? And if they're in the jungle and they hear that howl, then where else can you be if you're not in their jungle or your jungle, you know? And then they come and find you. But with Ursa, it's a little different because he can get it done quick, but at the same time, he's pretty easy to catch these days. Like, I've noticed, like, I bitched about Enrage earlier in the episode, but when he's using that on the Roshan because he needs to stay alive now, you just run in and you take him out. Like, it's actually a harder proposition in ways for Ursa to take Roche than it has been before. Are you eating, like, a box of Tic Tacs?
No. Why?
Are you shaking like an egg?
I'm shaking a little bit, but that's just the knee bouncing going on. I'm getting super hyped, man.
Yeah, super hype.
Yeah,
but
I love talking. I love talking me some. Ursa.
I like this topic in general because it's just it's tangible and intangible all at the same time. Like you mentioned, stacking creeps, and this is one thing with people that we've played with that I've noticed is they'll stack just because they can stack. And I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but if you can't clear the stack and your enemy's likely to get it before you, then you just wasted time and resources to give your enemy something. You know what I mean? And so that's a reflection on the opposite side of what I mean, is where are you spending your time and resources, and where are you sacrificing that in order to benefit your team? Because that's all time is in Dota, really. It's a resource in itself.
Opportunity cost, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
opportunity
a real thing,
cost. I like
especially
that.
There.
That sounds like a sales term. Is it?
I won't do my sales pitch, but yeah, it definitely. I mean, it's a big thing. It is. It's the ultimate question of where do I go next, right? That is always a question that has to be on any Dota player's mind, and when you are making that decision, you know you are sacrificing something else. So knowing what the sacrifice is the first step. Knowing that if I do this, if I choose A instead of B, I'm giving up B by doing that, right? Like in essence. Or am I? That's another thing to determine, right? Sometimes you can
very
feel
existential.
Like sometimes you can feel like you're sacrificing an objective when in reality there was never a point where it would have been saved. I think we've talked about this in other shows, but a good example is like giving up that off lane Radiant tower, right? And it's like 13 minutes into the game and things are going okay. and you're not really losing the game, but you see that there's a couple heroes top, and you maybe want to teleport in and try to deny it or try to defend it, buy some time. Now you have to weigh what you're actually sacrificing, and what you're sacrificing is really a tower that's not all that relevant for the time, right? Yeah. Very often that is not an important tower.
If they're taking it at that point in the game, it's not that relevant in the game because you haven't had people there to defend it, right? They've been pushing up the lane so much, like obviously just by a given, it hasn't been that relevant to your game. I like that logic.
Yeah, so there's all these decisions. We're just giving some examples, but there's
broad examples.
They're broad examples that can be, when you're like, I don't know. I've been guilty of this lately. I've been playing some Invoker, and I land my Sunstrikes and stuff like that. I've been enjoying the Quas Exort, old school Forge Spirit Invoker, and that's been a lot of fun. But when you're playing that style, you are sacrificing your ability to gank lanes by sitting in the lane, getting your Midas, farming the mid lane, farming the jungle, and just trying to contribute with just some Sunstrikes. You're sacrificing presence in other lanes. And, by doing that, you may be getting a better advantage, but you need to recognize that is something taking place, right? There's somewhere else that you could be that maybe is also a benefit, but you have to decide, is that more benefit than the thing I'm doing right now? And it's hard. It's a hard decision to make, but it's one that I think a lot of us need to take some time and think about, because I know that I've been especially guilty of this. Is deciding, do I have to take that tower right now, or can I wait, or is it worth it if they deny it? Is that going to kill us right now? Is someone, do they need that extra, 100 gold or whatever to get the Blink Dagger on Earthshaker or Sand King or something, right? It's like these are things that you have to go into your thought process, and man, it is hard. We've talked about the binary, as we've called it on the show. I mean, it's a lesson we've tried to impart that was actually passed to me from some other Dota players, and it's having that checklist in your mind of, is this an objective that's an important objective to my team? Like, you look at offlane, and if all your team is pushing their offlane and it's going to be a trade, is it a good thing for me to port in there and like throw my life at a tower that's already dead? Right. And you don't grow too attached to these objectives, because really the point is to win the game, is to take the throne, right? That's a super relevant example, because even if you look at the major, I mean, like, just because it happened in the major, doesn't mean that we have to, do it in our pubs, but it's something that you will see reflected. I mean, there's a reason that
it's a reflection of a meta, and we've agreed. Yeah. We've talked about this before. We don't feel like the level we play at is to the pros level or anything, but what you do see is from pro players doing it is like, a kid in a baseball park, like trying to hit one out of the park like Babe Ruth or something and pointing for the fences. Like, people imitate that behavior. They try that. And so you see a reflection of the meta throughout anything you try, and like the fact I'm even playing Sven a ton now, it's like, I wanted to play him before, but I was like, that's stupid. No one likes that. And then I see RTZ do it, and I'm like, all right, back on, like...
Really, it's not even you that you're... Like, you were going to pick him anyway, but it's just the way people view it.
How people react to it.
Instead of it being like, oh, God, here's a Sven. What the hell is this guy doing? Now it's like, oh, Sven. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
PLS, follow me. I get Blink Dagger. That's what I say. And, I just jump on people, like... I don't know.
But back to the point I was going to make about like how the majors is reflecting that is from the off lane. You're seeing people nowadays, and you saw, I think Moonmeander was bitching about this on Twitter, is that the way the off lane is being played in a lot of the upper bracket matches, especially with Liquid and Secret and a couple of the other teams, is they would just sack the off lane completely, and they would have your Beastmaster get an Iron Talon and just farm up the hard camp, right? Yeah. Farm up go straight to the jungle, hit level 2 or 3, and then just go to the jungle. I mean, that's sacrificing an entire lane, but that at least guarantees that a Beastmaster may get enough farm to rush his Necro Book and kind of split push the lanes and pick a team apart like that. And maybe you don't get that, or maybe you risk dying a lot in the off lane there if you try to stick it out and just sap some experience. So that's another example of sacrificing.
That's an excellent example at the pro level of giving up one objective in order to claim another later on. In our meta, it's like people. It feels like people don't understand power curves enough to realize that, look, this Darkseer might, or not Darkseer, but whoever's in the safe lane might be farming for free, but this Darkseer can rotate down and take, some levels in experience and gold and all that good stuff to come back later on and help this carry out farm. Like you can try to like work your way around the goals, and we mentioned playing around a certain hero, Ursa. I mean, you don't engage the Ursa, ever, And, like, you just play around him while he farms, and you try to take objectives around him. I feel like that's kind of what happened to Arteezy's Sven, in a way. Why you even have to go rapiers. Is like he's this powerhouse of a force that you're just like, okay, well, we're just not ever going to fight you. How's that sound?
And it was the whole team composition, too. They had, like, a Tide Hunter. EG would kind of go for that more balanced lineup where you'd have a lot of team fight, and you'd get a really farmed, conventional carry, and then it would be like, great, but, Secret's willing to sacrifice whatever you want to be trying to take because they're going to punish you for it on the other lanes. Like, Nature's Prophet was picked so much by Misery and played so well by him. I think he was another... the whole team collectively played excellent, but I think when you were looking at just going back to the major, when you're looking at players that you were unsure about, that were question marks for the team for Secret, I think Misery was a big one, and so was Pilot, so was Eternal Envy, of course, but so was how effective Pile Die would be, and those guys showed up in spades.
His lion was incredible. Incredible lion on Pile Die. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Puppy fanboy. But I feel like what Puppy does well, it's intangible. Like, I don't know. He's just always where he needs to be. He's always leading his team. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I met him once.
He also plays a mean support Doom.
Seriously. Like, this guy invents the meta. He is the meta. Dr. Meta Hatton.
This is the patented gush episode from .p. This is just us gushing over Eternal Envy and really the rest of Team Secret, but...
I actually did meet Puppy when we were at the International.
Yes.
He was down in like the lounge, and my cousin works at Valve, and I got to walk up and meet him, and it was very interesting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Was he wearing a hoodie and sweatpants?
He was wearing sweatpants, but just a t-shirt, and he was like down, like talking.
It was August. So that makes
he's
sense.
Like the most like. I don't think you could call that guy's like nationality because he's like a man of the world in a way. Like it's hard to explain. Like I don't mean to like make Estonian, like if there's any Estonian listeners, they'd be like, fuck that. But like that guy speaks like better English than me, it feels like. Like he's such a good communicator. Yeah. Like, and I feel like it's because of Dota, and like here I'm gonna tie it back in, and it's gonna be really sappy. But this guy like sacrificed years of his life to dedicate himself to something that he loved, and it turned out to be fantastic for him. So like Dota is a game about sacrifice, I think. When you sacrifice something and it ends up being a good decision, it greatly benefits you. But when you sacrifice like something that's not too good and you keep giving up sacrifices without gaining anything, you lose game.
God damn. That's some strategist bullshit. But
some wisdom.
I gotta tell you, if I had to think about the way, like I'm just picturing him in my head right now, and Puppy, to me, he's like if you took Sun Tzu, and The Art of War, and then you took like The Big Lebowski, and they just had a baby.
Yeah, no joke.
It's like
who wouldn't want to be that though? I just got jealous hearing that.
Wearing the most comfortable clothes ever. Just I don't know. He was a madman, and they just outplayed everyone in the tournament
on his birthday.
So many different levels. But I mean, even the last game, people were talking about the last game that it was over before it even started, and that was because I think the commentators called it the hardest outdraft of the entire series by like far and away. I think that they stomped him.
Going back to your point earlier about Liquid having limited LAN experience, I think that has something to do with that. I think when it gets down to that level of play, it comes down to how much experience you have on that world stage with the people cheering around you and you trying to outdraft. Like, I feel like there was just a definite outdraft in that last game, and probably games before it as well, to be honest, and outplayed, in all of them, of course, because Secret won. But
yeah, so I mean, I think that kind of wraps up what we wanted to talk about with how you can sacrifice and when you need to make that decision and be conscious of what you're sacrificing.
We didn't cover one point, and that's should you take Roche right now? No. The answer is no. The answer is always no. I'm starting to realize.
Just don't take it.
Guys, take Roche. The team's not here. And I run into the Roche pit, and then they're all just behind me. What the fuck, team? You know, like.
Welcome to your high 2K, low 3K pubs.
There you go.
Oh God.
But that does wrap us. That wraps us up there. Blue, do you have anything else to add before we move on, my friend? I want to talk about your changed Twitter a little bit because we've assimilated you, Mafa.
What else that I want to mention? Just that I am so fucking happy that Beastmaster and the Necrobook are back in action. I love that hero. I forgot how much I enjoyed him.
He's like
until I saw him again.
He's a lot of things at once as well. Like I feel like these very broad mid lanes are coming back in, and it makes me very happy. I feel the same about Void, and we saw quite a lot of play about him. Didn't get to talk too much about him, but I could talk about Void for a while because I've been playing a bit.
We'll probably
Beastmaster's like a roaming tide or something. Like I can't explain it. Like that ult is so good.
It is damn good. I don't know if they'll nerf him, but I guess we'll talk about it on our 6.86 episode, eh?
Yep.
That's coming up, our 6.86 kind of in review episode that we have coming up next week.
And we're still reworking our show, guys. We're figuring things out. Me and Blue are staying ahead of the curve. We're surfing USA, you know? Or Blue's a huge surfer, right? That's what you do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In my spare time in Chicago, yeah.
Yep, Chicago surfing. But we're going to be reworking that. Send us in your ideas, what you would like to see from Tryhard Tuesdays. We're going to be reformatting some things. Blue has changed his name on Twitter to .p_blue or Mr. Blue.
It's Mr. Blue.
Nice.
.p _ Mr. Blue.
So he's been assimilated. He is now one of us. He thinks like us. He talks like us. He is us. We are Legion. And I am at .p _ Wazoo on Twitter. You can find me there. Check us out on YouTube. What is that? At .ptv?
YouTube.com/.ptv1. And shout out to Blackheart for sending in some shot glasses our way.
That was very nice.
They're pretty nice. They're pretty nice. I might put up a photo of them on Twitter. We'll see.
We've featured them on the stream, to say the least. But
God, yeah.
I'm glad you guys joined us. Also, you can reach us on Twitch at .ptv. Check out the in-houses, guys. People are having a lot of fun with that. We have a ladder system going. If you have any questions about that, you can reach us at, Grouty Dota? Yeah, at Grouty Dota. And got a lot of people, that we'd love to bring into the scene and help you guys out with some awesome in-houses. Like, there's always some crazy antics going on. And it's become quite an event. So please join in for that if you're interested in the community whatsoever. We're going to have some interesting content coming your way soon, so stay tuned for details. Blue, why don't you close us out? This is like me pop quizzing you, by the way. And like that, I just cut you off. Because I never make you close out the show, but did you do your homework, boy?
That's all me? Close out the show?
Yeah, you do it, man. Like, you are the wind beneath my wings.
Oh my God. Dude, are you... You've been sipping on some of that Fireball that
no way, I have standards, man.
Oh my God.
Real standards.
Come on, guys, professionalism here, right? We're a professional podcast. Let's get professional here.
I've been playing the Dotes.
Okay.
But
you're going full James right now. But so yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening, and stay hard and stay classy.